This is Chris McKaylee with another edition of the Glossary of Common California Government Terms. This is for letters H through L. Heading: a name or short phrase before a statute, but does not dictate the substance of the provision of law. Hearing refers to a committee hearing of a standing, special, select, or joint committee of the California legislature. Held in committee. This is when a measure was not voted upon because it was likely to fail passage and a vote is not taken on the measure. Held under submission, when a bill is heard but no motion is made on the bill. Hijacked bill refers to when a member takes over another member's bill in the legislative process and amends different language into the bill and uses it as their own vehicle. Histories refers to the Senate or Assembly daily and weekly histories, which contain all legislative measures with details of their respective histories of legislative action. Hostile amendments. These are amendments that are proposed by another member in committee or on the floor that are not supported by the bill's author. House refers to either the Assembly or the Senate, the two houses of the California State Legislature. House of origin is the first or original house in which a legislative measure is introduced. House resolution is a single house resolution, either an HR in the Assembly or an SR in the Senate. House rules, these are the individual rules adopted by the Senate or the Assembly. Impeachment is the process of impeaching an elected official by the state assembly. The trial to remove the elected official is conducted by the state Senate. Implied repeal is when a court determines that, by implication of the language used in another statute, that a statute or part of another statute has effectively been repealed by that new statute. Inactive file. A bill can be placed on the inactive file on the Assembly floor or Senate floor at either the bill author's request or because of a procedural motion. Incumbent. The current legislator holding the seat to which they were elected. Informational hearing is when a legislative committee conducts a hearing to gather information, usually about the subject matter of a potential upcoming bill. Initiative is the people's power to make a law through the state constitution or by statute. Insert is adding a provision or language into a legislative measure. Intent bill is a bill that merely expresses the intent of the legislature without any substantive language. Intent statement is a statement of legislative intent contained in a bill. Interim recess begins when the legislature adjourns the first year of its 2-year legislative session. Interim study occurs when the subject matter of a bill is considered by a legislative committee while the legislature is conducting its recess. Intern is an individual who usually works for free or academic credit in a legislative office. Introduction. A legislative measure must be introduced before being acted upon. Once introduced, it is read the first time. An introduced bill is the version of the bill at the time of its introduction. January 10th budget, or Jan 10 budget, refers to the governor's initial budget proposal, which, pursuant to the Constitution, is due by the 10th day of the calendar year. JLBC, or the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, is obviously a joint committee with an equal number of Assembly members and senators sitting on it. It's the duty of this committee to ascertain facts and make recommendations to the legislature concerning the California state budget, their revenues and expenditures, the organization and functions of the state and its departments, subdivisions, and agencies, with a view to reducing the cost of state government and securing greater efficiency and economy. Joint author is a legislator may add his or her name in support of a legislative measure by being a joint author of the measure and having his or her name on the top line, the same one as the lead author. Joint committee is any committee that's comprised of an equal number of senators and assembly members. A joint recess, this is the time period in which the Assembly and Senate are on recess at the same time. Joint resolution is a measure adopted by both houses of the legislature to express an opinion about a federal matter. Joint rules, the rules adopted by the Senate and the Assembly to govern matters of both houses of the California State Legislature. A joint session occurs when both houses of the legislature meet together, usually to hear a formal address by a distinguished guest, such as the governor during his annual State of the State address. Journal is the official record of the proceedings of the Senate and Assembly. There's a Senate Daily Journal and an Assembly Daily Journal. Judicial review is the process by which the judicial branch reviews the validity of a legislative or executive branch action. Laws, all of the rules that are provided for by the Constitution, statutes, and regulations. Laid on the table, a motion to prevent a measure or amendment from moving forward. LDC is a legislative data center that's operated by the Office of Legislative Counsel and that operates the LegInfo website. Lead author is the legislator whose name is listed first on a legislative measure. Lease revenue bond is where debt is repaid by lease payments made by state agencies, such as for the construction of a prison or a courthouse. Leg counsel is a shortened version reference to the Office of Legislative Counsel or the attorneys at the OLC. Leg info is a shortened version reference to the official website managed by the OLC, the Office of Legislative Counsel, which is the official website for information on the California legislature and its legislative measures. Legalese is the term used to describe language in a statute that's unnecessarily legalistic. For example, using words such as heretofore. And it's generally not used in today's legislative drafting. Legislative advocate is another term for a lobbyist who focuses on the legislative branch of state government. Legislative analyst, or LAO, the legislative analyst himself, who is a legislative appointee, has his or her staff provide thorough, nonpartisan analysis of the state budget approved or submitted by the governor. The LAO also analyzes the fiscal impact of some other legislation and prepare analyses of ballot measures published in the state ballot pamphlet. Legislative Counsel, or Leg Counsel, or OLC, are the attorneys for the legislature and governor who provide legal advice and drafting legislative measures and amendments to form. Legislative Counsel opinion is an official oral or written decision issued by the opinion unit on behalf of the California Legislative Council. Legislative Council's digest refers to the digest written by the OLC attorney, where they provide an objective, brief explanation of existing law and what a particular bill proposes to change an existing law. Legislative day or session day is a day that the legislature is in session. Legislative drafting refers to the process used to draft the different types of legislative measures. The legislative index is compiled by the Office of Legislative Counsel, and this publication allows individuals to access bills based upon the subject matter index placed in alphabetical order. Legislative intent is when the legislature intends what the legislature actually intends in enacting a particular bill. Legislative intent statement is a statement of legislative intent, of course, contained in a bill by the legislature. Legislative liaison is a member of the executive branch who serves as a conduit between the legislative and executive branches of state government. Legislative matters. These are three types. There are three types of legislative measures in the California legislature: a bill, a resolution, and a constitutional amendment. Legislative oversight is when the legislature conducts an oversight hearing with one or more other committees. Legislative process are the procedures used to move measures through the lawmaking process in the legislative branch of government. A legislative session refers to the 2-year or biennium legislative session in California. Legislative unit is the group of individuals who work in the governor's legislative unit as the liaison to the legislative branch of state government. Legislator is the individual who serves in the legislature as an assembly member or as a senator. Legislature refers to the two houses of the legislature, the assembly and senate. Letter to the journal. These types of letters are submitted by a legislator to either the Assembly Daily Journal for an AB or the Senate Daily Journal for an SB in order to state legislative intent or provide additional information or background on the bill. Liberally construe. A statute may include a provision instructing the courts to interpret a statute's provisions liberally so as to best effectuate the intent of the legislature in that regard. Lift a call. A call must be lifted in order for a final vote to be recorded. Line item veto or the blue pencil is a term used to refer to the governor's constitutional authority to line item veto an item of appropriation in either the budget or an appropriation bill. The authority is to either reduce or eliminate. Local assistance, or LA, are expenditures made for the support of local government or other locally administered activities. Lobbyist is an individual who advocates, usually on behalf of another, for legislative or administrative action in the legislative or executive branches of state government. Local preemption refers to when a state law precludes a local ordinance from conflicting with state law. A local statute or a special statute is a statute that does not have uniform operation. It is the opposite of a general statute. LORA, L-O-R-A, is the Legislative Open Records Act, which is the legislative branch's equivalent to the state's PRA, or Public Records Act, that allows access to legislative documents by members of the public. Lower house is the term that refers to the state assembly in the California legislature. And finally, lieutenant governor, the elected lieutenant governor of California also serves as the president of the California State Senate.